We didn't dream of it. That was nice of you to give a warning too, sir.
Well, you're very welcome, Joel. I'm here to warn you. I
Such a good guy.
Wanted you to get off that horrendous topic that you were on and onto a different topic.
Just can't help myself, Ben.
I don't want you to help yourself. Welcome to Practical Shooting After Dark. We're here to talk about shooting. On deck tonight, got Mr. Park.
Hello.
Mr. Bradley.
Hello.
Professor Kim.
Hello.
And of course, everybody's come here with a topic, something to talk about. Lord only knows what you guys are planning on talking about tonight. Let's start with Mr. Bradley. I haven't heard from you in a while. I've been really super bored that you haven't been on here, so.
Yeah, right.
Tell me something good, man.
So I shot a match this weekend. Mine's a trigger warning.
You got mad?
Yeah,
Something made you angry?
I don't know if if I got mad, but it's definitely something that I'm trying to figure out what the issue is. Maybe the issue is with me.
That's what they say. Look inward when you feel anger.
Exactly. So I hear at every match. I'm not sure I've been to a match of any kind, of any level, where I have not heard someone running the timer say, the grease ring does not touch the scoring line. So it's not the better hit. I don't know. I just don't understand why that's still said. And it kind of gets me going. And anybody that knows me personally will sit there and laugh when I sit there and try to correct someone.
Wait, is anybody who talks about a grease ring?
No. So when you're looking at a target and they say, hey, the grease ring's not touching, that's a Charlie. It's not an Alpha because the grease ring's not touching the line.
Oh. And then you correct them, but you get angry. So this would be like,
no,
if I have high capacity clips for my pistol.
I was just getting ready to say that
all the time. Is it like that?
It's not. No, it's not like that. That doesn't bother me. But it's like they don't know the rules. That's what bothers me.
It's a USPSA match.
I don't know what you mean by that.
I think
I don't know if you're inferring
you've competed successfully in the upper echelons of USPSA. So I think you know exactly what I mean when you're like, hey, I go to these USPSA matches and people don't know the scoring rules. It's like, it's a USPSA match. I don't understand what your expectations were. I'm sorry, Joel. I'm sorry. Head in hand. There he is.
Already off the gun. Joel's nervous. No, I took the RO class just like a lot of other people, and we were told that, hey, the bullet, the hole in the paper is smaller than the bullet. We do not use grease ring scoring, and that is not the boundary of the score. So this is what an overlay is, and this is why you use it. Everybody had to demonstrate it in class. I just actually looked up the rules while my computer was loading on the website. Search for grease ring. It's only mentioned twice, and it's not mentioned for anything as far as scoring. It's basically to determine that there's a hit on paper. It's not you can use it. Some range lawyer will correct me here, but you can use it to basically ensure that it wasn't a bullet strike. When you have a weird hit, you look for a grease ring to see if that indicates an actual hit. It's not a ricochet. There's probably, I can't remember the other one either, but it doesn't mention anything for scoring, and then it says use your overlays. And anyways, but yeah, that's I had an argument with a guy. I wouldn't say it was an argument, but he was debating that if the grease ring does not touch, it can only score for the lesser hit, so to speak. And I explained.
He didn't understand the concept of overlays and bullet diameters.
Yeah, and we had the overlay in our hand, and I was like, "What is this overlay for?" And he was like, and he couldn't really explain it, and he just was so stuck on the grease ring, he couldn't comprehend what I was saying and why there's a use for the overlay. I said, the overlay is the actual diameter of the bullet, and it's larger than the hole in the paper, correct? He said, yes. But he just never could. And then finally, at the end, it did click. And then he said, no, we're saying the same thing. And I just walked off. Because everybody else on the stage saw what was going down as far as what he was doing. And they were all laughing at me like, why have you been wasting the last 5 minutes talking to
Were you arguing about one of your hits or someone else's?
Nope, it was someone else.
That makes it better. That makes the story so much better.
I was running the timer.
You, Jason, I want you to come to my club match and fucking straighten people out. That'd be good fun.
Yeah. So, anyways. I don't know, man.
What other stuff annoys you? Like if that annoys you, then this kind of spotty officiating and stuff probably drives you up the wall.
Like what? Give me an example.
Of spotty officiating?
Because it does. You don't have to give me an example.
And you could probably give me more examples, like based on your
Sure.
last Nationals attendance. Yeah. All right. Well, Jason, I like that. That's good. I would want you on my squad at a match just for these reasons. Honestly. All right. Mr. Kim.
Yes.
Tell us something good.
Yeah. So I just got back from USPSA Two-Gun Nationals, the first time ever.
Yes.
It was at the same club as the low cap, which Matt talked about, low cap experience. In terms of the venue, it's the same place, and some of the experiences he had, I had the same experience. So like going on a safety video, stuff like that. In terms of the club, just one thing difference this time, they didn't run out of food, which was very good at the awards.
That's
because I was very hungry.
Did they have enough porta potties?
That's a negative.
Oh, perfect. At least they
same
learned
number
their
of
mistakes.
porta potty.
Yeah.
At least it wasn't overwhelming. None of them didn't have an overwhelming or overflowing porta potty. It was actually cleaned out, I think. It was pretty empty. So my experience actually was pretty good in terms of a match. So basically, it was very interesting to see different names. So there are PCC hardcore shooters, 3-gun hardcore shooters, handgun hardcore shooters, like open shooter, carry optic shooter, limited shooter. So I really enjoyed seeing many different names and see how the names stack up at the end of the match as well. The match, it was 11 stages total, but basically 5 bays per day. Only one stage had 2 stages in one bay. So in terms of scheduling, they did very well. It was 2-day match. Day 1 was very delayed due to rain situation. It was really bad rain. But day 2, the schedule was right on point as they announced it on the match book. So I think, minus the environment factor, I think they did very well in terms of time management. But the stages were same concept. So basically, it's 3 different types of stages rotating. So one stage is box to box, as we saw in low cap. So you start one box, you go to the other box. But since there's 2-gun, you go to this box, that box, return, and go to the other box, return. Type of a stage was there, and also one huge field course. There were, so I guess about three big ones, and then another type was somewhat narrow lateral box, like a lot of the USPSA style stage. So I think that was very interesting how the bigger field course, it looked almost like a 3-gun stage, and the box to box older style USPSA style, and the lateral boxes were kind of a modern USPSA style stage. It was interesting also how they did 2-gun stages and 1-gun stages too. So there were 2 handgun stages, 2 PCC stages. Rest of them were 2-gun. So you had to transition from a MGM, whatever dump box they call it. And it was pretty interesting. Some stages were mandatory handgun start in a 2-gun stage. Some stage PCC mandatory start, and some stage had an option. So in terms of strategy, you can attack however you want. Some stages people start PCC first or handgun first. I personally liked drawing from a handgun, so usually I was starting with a handgun. But I would say the difference between starting with the PCC and starting with the handgun was pretty minimal, I would say. That was something I liked. And this match was a lot harder than I thought. I thought just by looking at the diagram, it looked like a hose fast, but it was not. And at the end of the match, what I heard is there was only one person who shot it clean without penalty. And I mean, that's telling something, right?
Sure.
And also the scoring, before I shot it, because this is not a hit factor scoring, I thought it wasn't going to be as interesting. but having it time plus scoring with the stage they built was very interesting because of the shots were pretty risky. Some shots were pretty close up, but it was partialed up somehow usually. So if you clip a no shoot, there's a 5-second penalty. And if you had there was a couple zebra targets. If you shot 2 in the black, then you get 10-second penalty because there's no hit in the brown. So as you can see, the penalty is so great. So that aspect was making things more interesting, in my opinion, because scoring is if you have 1 alpha or 2 hits in the brown, you don't get any penalty. That can kind of give you an idea. Oh, hey, you just hold fast, right? There's 2 in the brown, nice. But there were many partials. So if you do that, and again a penalty, the 5-second penalty is just really big. In terms of the target, so I hate to compare with other match, but the 2-gun match I shot in Utah earlier, the practical 2-gun match by Cobalt, they had white target for rifle, so paper target wise, paper target white rifle, paper target brown handgun, easy separation, colors different, and the steel target had a different color. Blue steel will be pistol, white steel will be rifle. So very simple. However, this match had a very, very high round count, but some stages had very small dimension. So not a big stage.
I noticed the stages, what did they average? 40 rounds? Something like that?
Something like that, yeah. Very, very high round count. But there were a couple stages that were small bay. And if you put like a 20 brown targets, that's going to be very confusing. So there was one particular stage that everybody was stacked up in the walkthrough day trying to figure out the memory stage. That one was everybody like had a hard time because it's like brown, 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 brown. But you need to know which one's rifle, which one's handgun. Although the handgun targets were USPSA humanoid target, rifle target was IPSC target, but just by having it same color, that was a lot confusing. And they introduced a new target that I've never shot in a competition, which is a orange clay, like the shotgun clay. Mm-hmm. So that one was deceptively hard. I would say the distance for the clays somewhere around 15 to even, I think it was like 50 yards or 30 to 50 yards. I forgot exact number, but those were very tough shots. And I think that actually gave people more hard time because everybody think, hey, this range is not as big of a base. So I think a lot of people thought it's going to be host fast, but they put that orange clay to slow people down and actually have like accurate shooting. And also PCC, you need to know the holdover for those tiny clays. So that was something, yes, that was something very challenging. I had to ask people around because I've not really shot far distance with PCC. So people were saying, oh, that target, you got to aim low. That target, you just shoot right on point. Those kind of aspects was very interesting. And personally, I had a great time actually because it was something new scoring. Of course, it's a new type of a competition shooting 2-gun. So I really want to return, but there is definitely some room to grow. Like the target differentiating with the color brown, 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 brown. I don't think that's really easy. If it were to be same color, they need to at least do something to make it a little bit easier to memorize. Or bigger field course, it's going to be a little bit better because it's spaced out. But if it's stacked tight to tight, left to right, side by side, it's going to be very difficult to memorize those. Yeah.
Yeah. It looked like they did hot holstering. Is that correct? So your handgun's loaded and you can reholster it and you get your switch to a rifle?
It was possible, yes. But on some stages, the starting position, they forced them to have the firearm on the opposite side of the shooting box. So in that kind of case, you're not starting with the gun. So it doesn't really make sense to hot holster. But there were like 2 stages that people did hot holster. But the stage wins ended up being not hot holstering. Just shoot everything one gun, aggressive, and then toss it and shoot one gun. That end up being the stage win.
Gotcha. They do UML at my club, and I guess it's a no-no to hot holster. Um, what do you reckon as far as skills being tested? Did you feel like it was equal for the different guns as far as like some matches it's really easy handgun targets and it's difficult rifle targets? Did you feel like it was balanced?
Uh, I would personally think so. Personally, I don't have any three gun experience, so I can't really say how accurate it has to be. But for PCC, I think they actually tested some accuracy stuff. There were more than a couple 50-yard steel shots, like a mini popper size steel target, steel plate. So I think there were definitely some accuracy testing as well. But for PCC too, there were some hosing stuff for sure, and some interesting activation stuff too. So I think in terms of skill testing, I think they definitely tested it.
Well,
Good. I like it.
Yeah.
glad you had fun.
Thank you.
Are you going to shoot it again?
Yeah, I'm definitely playing on it.
I'm glad you went. And you'll have stuff on Training Group about this, I assume.
Yes, definitely. It's experience. I'm gonna be explaining some more detail in time scoring on that video, and yeah, some experience stuff.
All right.
Mhm.
All right, Mr. Joel.
This week in shooting, or I guess over the weekend, I actually took a class.
You took a
Which was-
class. You're a
was fun.
shooting instructor. Why would you take a class?
Well, I wanted an experience, Ben. I just thought I'll
I'm
go
gonna
to a
get
bunch of
better at
different
shooting.
classes and yeah, no. I'm kind of, I mean, obviously a nerd about this stuff, so I was like seeing how different people present information differently. So I took a Tim Herron class this previous weekend. It was fun. So it's kind of everyone kind of does a similar thing in the way of marksmanship fundamentals, grip, whatever. There was definitely a big emphasis on grip, especially day one. That was something he talked about a lot. There was one drill specifically that actually I liked quite a bit, and it was something I hadn't seen it done exactly this way. But so he was talking about hand tension, and people think like, oh yeah, grip the gun really hard with your support hand, and people think like, oh yeah. For instance, Ben did a similar thing in class where like I think I'm holding onto the gun, and Ben walks over and he puts his support hand around my gun, and he grips the gun extremely hard. He's like, no, grip the gun like that. I'm like, oh, okay, I get it now. So what Tim did was he basically had the student walk up and shake hands, but in a way of grip my hand the way you would want to grip the gun with your, you switch with your firing hand or your support hand. And so for instance, doing your firing hand, okay, you shake hands, and then it's okay, hold my hand the way you would if you were, holding your gun, and then press your trigger independently without your other fingers moving. And what you'd see is most people think like, oh yeah, I grip my handgun this way. And then when they would try to move their trigger finger while holding that person's hand, if I'm making sense, you'd see the lower half of their hand or all the rest of their fingertips all would be kind of moving around also. And that's, hey, guess what, dummy? When you're shooting the gun and you're gripping the gun in that way, obviously Tim didn't call somebody a dummy, but when you're pressing the trigger in that way, all the rest of your fingertips are flexing, and obviously that's going to cause issues with marksmanship fundamentals. So I liked that. It's kind of a different hands-on way approach with everybody to show them proper grip tension. And then with your support hand, of course, the same drill you grip. Yeah, that's not really gripping the gun hard. Grip the gun like this, and really crush down someone's hand. You should be gripping the gun with this kind of tension. And then doing drills. Some of them were, okay, experiment with different types of grips. And so you'd be shooting a target and be like, okay, release your support hand as you're firing. See what happens. Clamp down really hard with your firing hand while you're shooting. What happens? And, people were kind of drawing conclusions like, hey, if I really grip down hard with my firing hand, I'm pushing shots for right-handed person low left, or I'm getting trigger freeze, or slow fire, I can't shoot the gun precisely because like in that handshake drill, the rest of my fingers are flexing also, and that's influencing where the bullets go. So anyway, I thought it was just kind of a fun way, a different hands-on way to talk about grip. And if you're interested in that and much more, I've got a class dump that'll be uploaded to Training Group. I actually paused it for doing this, but I've got a lot of video that'll be on Training Group in the near future.
Well, there you go. So the Training Group people can get a little insight into what that class is about. Who would you, what demographic of person would you recommend for that class?
I suppose it's good for any level. I would say he was quite good at dealing with. There were a couple of people that were like non-USPSA people, and he was quite good at like putting it in their terms where it made sense. And then of course there was a couple pretty squared away shooters, and he was good at, you know, crushing them as well. So then quit making the clacky.
Okay, I'll stop typing. I'm
anyway.
very sorry. And so that's good. I appreciate the class dump. It looks like that's a two-parter from you. Speaking of class dumps, I'm going to talk about. I went on tour for, you know, it reminded me of the old days when I'm like traveling around the whole time. So I went on. I had 5 2-day classes set up that were just back to back to back to back to back, in between your range, Joel, in Omaha, and Mason's range in New Hampshire. I had a day to travel between, but that was it. So I enjoyed that trip, had a great time. Videos coming to Training Group, of course, for the Omaha classes. Joel was kind enough to film them. But I want to talk about something else. An interesting experience for sure. One I don't get to have very much, but I had an excellent shooter in my New Hampshire classes. So having a guy at Mason's level mixed into fundamentals and skills and drills classes, I can tell you was very interesting. And I'm not, you know, it's not to talk about Mason or whatever, but the most interesting piece of information I heard from students about that, you guys will be shocked. I was extremely hard on Mason. Extremely.
Yeah, I'm not at Mason's level, and judging from the comments I got, this does not surprise me.
Right. And I thought it was really interesting, like, because, you know, it's like Mason, I mean, for anybody, it's like you want him to get better. And it's like when somebody's in a place where they're inexperienced and, you know, they're just kind of figuring it out and it's headed in a good direction, you just give that person encouragement. And you have somebody who's at the cutting edge of performance who has all the motivation. You can't even, you couldn't even really discourage him if you wanted to. But so for a guy like that, you just go in on him hard with, you know, pretty direct feedback and like, you know, hey, here's what I think you could do to level up and raise. I thought it was very interesting having Mason mixed into a class. I really liked it. I don't know. Any thoughts about that, guys? Jason, you look like you want to say something.
I'm just sitting there thinking, like, I want to get a class now.
Well, a little behind the curtain, to plug my own stuff, I guess. Training Group podcast that dropped today. It's got Mason in it. And of course, before recording and afterwards a bit, I asked him about the class. We were talking about it. And yeah, he basically said you hurt his feelings and he knows what the rest of his year of training looks like. So he was quite excited to have direction for what he should be working on.
Yeah.
Which is good. That's the goal of taking a class.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's like how do you take if you're at that level? It's like then it's like I don't want you to be really good at shooting and pick off a nationals here and there. I want them to fear you. You know what I mean? That's what I want, Mason, because I think that would be funny. So he appreciated that. He appreciated that goal.
I have a question for you, Ben.
Yes.
So the advices you gave to Mason, would you say that's how you would advise yourself when you train by yourself?
That's actually a good point. So as far as directness, bluntness, being hard on people, yes. So when I'm thinking about myself, I try to have that 30,000 foot view of it and be hard on myself, but not hard on myself in the same way. Like, we have totally different temperaments, Mason and I, totally different training styles and shooting styles. And no, the advice I gave to him is not advice I give to myself because I'm not remotely wired like he is. He's very different.
Yeah.
So stuff that seems obvious to me is stuff that is like totally foreign to him, and vice versa, I think. Like I would imagine that was how that worked out.
So,
all right.
Can I say something real quick?
You can say whatever you want, man.
I've had been out a couple times, and the first time I was kind of deciding, should I have been out for a class? Should I do one of these classes? And I was like, I finally got the realization. I was like, here's one of two things going to happen. He's going to be like, dude, you're awesome. You couldn't be any more awesome. Keep being awesome. Or he was going to be like, hey, here's what you need to work on. And I was like, either one of those is a good thing, right? And of course, it was the last one. It's like, hey, here's what you need to work on. But so yeah, I mean, when I hear stuff like that, that makes me go like, man, I need to get a class. I need to go shoot with Ben or something. So, anyways.
Well, not to toot my own horn, but I have I've been around a while now. I've been fortunate. I started the international training game in 2014. I decided to move into that, where I was like, hey, I want to do a third of my stuff outside of the US just to get more experience. And that was one of the best things for me, honestly, just to start looking at things differently and looking at people and shooting differently. It was very helpful. And that experience has been good. And it's like, I don't know, I keep having good experiences and learning a lot. So it's helpful. It helps me give better feedback. Try anyway. All right, let's move on to a question. And it's an interesting one. Here we go. Do you have a feel for how much money the average A or B class fairly serious USPSA shooter spends per year on the sport? Guns, ammo, travel, match fees, training equipment, etc. I know in the last year everything went up, so I guess I'm talking in the good old days back in 2019. Thanks. Well, let's talk about what does that look like? What is somebody doing if they're fairly serious at USPSA? What are they spending their time doing?
I'm just buying stuff that I need, not caring how much it costs.
Well, okay. But I mean,
maybe,
like as far as
maybe
what
that sounded like a
activities-
flex and it did not mean to be. I'm trying to do some math right now.
Yeah. So I mean, back in the old days, I always saw people shoot 20,000 rounds a year.
That's
Like
what
if they're the dudes that they drive around to a couple section matches around them, maybe an area match, maybe they fly to a match. Is that, over the course of a year? I've always thought people spent like $5,000 a year if they're not buying new guns and shit.
Yeah.
That's always what I've thought.
I was going to say like 6. By the time you do like your local matches, also the ammo, I don't think it'd be the expensive part. So the ammo figure
It is
maybe
now. It's $37 a primer now. So
that's true. But no, I
But they're-
thought
they're more if you try and buy them from Joel. He'll give you a friend discount.
I
Motherfucker.
told you I would just give you primers. Actually,
Oh well, I misheard.
Now
you.
he's flexing.
Yeah, now he is.
no,
Yeah, Joel's like, I'm down to my last 200,000 primers.
300,000, but whatever. No,
Who's counting?
no, not nearly. No, I don't think the ammo is even the biggest part of that. I think that even before this, I mean, it was the travel and the match fees. But I think like $5,000 to $6,000 is probably, I would say, a pretty realistic number. I think
It is, and I mean, like I said, so you drive to a few matches that are close, shoot your club match at, once a month or whatever, or twice a month, and then
lie to maybe one.
then piss out some ammo for practice, shoot about 20,000 rounds, dry fire all the time. Yeah, I mean, we're pretty set, six-ish grand, something like that.
Mhm.
But it never really works out to be that because these people are always buying new guns and shit.
Yep.
I mean, so they in theory have an idea of how much it would cost, but that's not real,
But also how much money you spend doesn't really reflect at all on what you're getting out of it. So I'll be like, Ben, how many rounds did you shoot this year? Be like, I shot 100,000 rounds. Oh, he must be really good.
Yeah,
And I'd be like,
it's-
Jason's
not
like, I
really
shoot
good.
15,000 rounds. I'm like, oh, well, Jason doesn't shoot very much. He's obviously not very good. So, I mean,
Jason's just smart.
The numbers don't, like the financial part doesn't really tell you the tale.
Well, no, not at all. Well, guys, another Bang Up podcast. I do appreciate you all coming on. Thank you so much. Listeners, if you have a question, go to benstegger.com. Send me a question. We'd love to hear from you. Isn't that